provide investments. Anything that was on the main board of the NZX, you could invest in through our platform. And at the same time, we improved the fractionalisation of shares. So you can buy as little as 1 cent in a stock, which means that basically you could buy every single company on the New Zealand Stock Exchange for less than $2, including fees. So yeah, it's been working really well. I will, moving on to the next, kind of getting confused about where I am with time, but at the moment, we have more than 150,000 happy customers on the platform. And just today, we hit $400 million in funds under management. So the majority of our investors have never invested before. We have given them this great opportunity to become investors. And there is a, we stress to them that investing is for the long term, and that you should never invest anything that you're not willing to lose. I guess from the beginning when we started, there was a great bull market, and then, just in recent times, the market has dipped seriously, but we have experienced massive growth over the last 2 months. In fact, in March and April, we took on 48,000 new customers. And just for context, it took us 2 years to get to our first 48,000 customers. So people are aware, I guess, through the education that we've provided, that it's a good opportunity to become an investor. There's never a loss of risk involved, but if you can handle that risk and be sensible about it, then it's a good thing to do. Some of those, we're most proud, I guess, about the feedback that we get from our customers, and we are really involved with talking to them. Things like, I'm a 19-year-old Pacific Islander, and because of Sharesies, I've been able to invest myself to provide for my family. There's the little post-it notes on the right-hand side. They're kids, because we have kids accounts as well. They, encouraging children to be interested in this and to help themselves become financially independent and financially well, probably. What's coming up for us is we've got US shares coming soon. So that's basically giving even more access to a greater number of investments. I can't really go into much detail about that, but other than to tell you that they are coming soon. And I guess that has introduced a whole new level of complexity, because we've got New Zealand dollars, US dollars, and there'll be thousands of extra investment opportunities on the platform. So how do we keep that simple and playful and non-threatening to people who want to become investors? My job really is to get people onto the platform. That's what marketing managers do. And we've been really intent on building up a community of new investors and providing them the education and the confidence to do this. And we've done that through a number of things. Our customer call centre, it's not a call centre, our customer help centre is all done online. We've got about 7 people in that team who will answer any queries that you've got. We've also started Lunch Money, which is our 3 times a week market update. And we've got about 13,000 people signed up to that. And about the same number have signed up to our Share Club Facebook page, which is an area where people can just go and talk about stuff. It's not overly moderated by us, but we're trying to generate interest and discussion about investing. And we're also doing a lot more collaboration with journalists, and one of our aims is to become the go-to place for the place that people would go to get their investing news. I guess we're always interested in well-being of employees, and we think that a lot of often financial well-being is ignored through companies, and that if you are keen on developing the financial literacy and wealth development for your employees, then we'd be happy to help your teams get started on that journey. And I have no idea whether I was over time or not, but that's the end of my presentation.
Fantastic. Thanks, Alan. Thanks so much. I just wanted to go through a few questions that we've had some online for about 10 minutes or so, just to sort of fill out the details on that one. One of the questions that's come through is, how much advice do you do? Do you give webinars and stuff for first-time investors to introduce them to what they're getting involved in?
Yep, we're not allowed to give personalised advice, but we are able to give class advice. So that's more generalised advice, you know, like how might you what, you know, like compound interest. Lost my train of thought. We do webinars on how to use the platform. We've done webinars talking about financial, you know, what's happening in the market, introducing people to our audience about how to become better investors, all that sort of stuff. But no, we don't give personalised advice.
Oh, gotcha. I understand. Yeah, because there's a whole bunch of legals around, all that sort of stuff. So, how did you choose the funds you're involved with that they can tap into? What were the criteria? Were there sort of sustainability and green criteria in there, or?
Yep. So early on, the funds, like I said in my presentation, was they were all ETFs, which are exchange traded funds. And the reason that we chose them to start off with was because they gave sort of an immediate diversification. So even if you invested in one fund, you were diversified across a whole lot of companies just in that one investment. And then from memory, the second lot of funds that we introduced were some funds from Pathfinder Asset Management, who their whole reason for being is for sustainable investments, ESG funds, and we knew that our audience were really keen on investing in that type of activity or that type of fund. So that, you know, that's a big part of the investments that we offer, is that sustainable funds.
Yep. Oh, sure thing. Yeah. And how does the fee structure work? Do you sort of clip the ticket on the way through, take a percentage, or how is it that you get your piece of the action?
Yep. So there's a subscription fee. So for a very new investor who has less than $50 in their portfolio, that you don't pay anything. And then it steps up. So if you've got between 50 and 3,000, it's $1.50 a month to stay on the platform. And if you've got more than $3,000, it's you're best to do an annual fee, the annual subscription of $30 a year, or $3 a month. So you can do the sums. The actual fees, so managed funds and ETFs, the fees for those are built into the actual fund. They're not anything that we charge, you just buy them. And then for trading on the share market on the NZX, the fees are incredibly low. I think it's, I don't want to get this wrong, and it's not really my department, but it's incredibly low. It's, you know, we're talking cents, which is why you could buy the whole of the NZX for, you know, $2, including fees, if you were,
Gotcha. So it is very easy to access, it's a very easy access system.
Incredibly easy to access. It takes about 4 minutes to sign up and get started, as long as you've got ID and you can prove where you live. That's about it.
And what was sort of the thinking behind it? Is in terms of the maybe the political thinking or the resiliency thinking behind it? Why is it so important to let people get hold of the internet and not just the big people? Get hold of shares on the internet.
Get hold of shares, because I think that you know, it's important to democratize these things. You know, like there are some funds where, in fact, there are some funds on our platform that if you went directly to the fund provider, you would have to have $25,000 to start investing in that fund, whereas we can offer exactly the same fund to people from 1 cent. So, you know, our theory is that there should be no, especially in these days when there's, you know, digital response to everything, it shouldn't be prohibitive to anyone to be able to invest in anything that they want to based on a dollar value. And that's always our premise, is that whatever you can invest in, you have to invest, or we would want you to invest from 1 cent up. So basically we're giving access to anyone and everyone who wants to take advantage of it.
Because it's good as well, because we can't all do rental properties, you know.
No, that's right. And I mean, the other thing is that these days, you know, you're not, I'm not bagging banks, but you know, you're not earning that much money through a bank account or even a term deposit. And who knows what will happen to the property market. But yeah, it's another way to develop your wealth and financial well-being, really.
And on the other end of it as well, is it kind of like microfinancing, where you can sort of show a bit of support for businesses in single companies that you kind of really want to back on a more of an ethical basis?
Exactly. So, you know, we say that you're investing in New Zealand, really, and by investing in companies. And I guess one of our things is that we really want people to think hard about what they invest in, and that they should invest in the things that they like or they're interested in. And so, you know, imagine a company in 10 years' time. Will they still be around? Do you still value what they're doing? Do you value what they're doing now? And then invest in those companies. Yeah.
And how do companies get chosen by you to be ones that people can buy shares in? Can anyone apply to line up for that? Or
what do you mean
in terms of, because you've got a set number, is it a set number of companies that you can invest in? How do people get on that list if they've got a company they think, well, I'd like to plug into some?
They need to be registered. You know, they need to be on the New Zealand Stock Exchange.
NZX, yeah. Yep. And then it's open to all.
It's open. It's generally open. I think there might be a couple of companies that perhaps we don't offer because the liquidity or the amount of trading that they do is so low that it would be, you know, not worthwhile us. I know that when we became a participant on the NZX, that was certainly the case. But I'm pretty sure that everything that is on the main board is on Sharesies at the moment.
Cool, thanks, Ryan. And just one last quick point, just where do they go to? Is it sharesies.com or sharesies.co.nz?
Sharesies.nz.
Perfect.
Or although I think sharesies.co.nz will get there, and maybe sharesies.com as well. But yeah, just do a search for Sharesies and yep.
Jump on there, yep. Have a look around, and maybe put a little bit of money out, see what happens.
Exactly.
Good stuff. Thank you very much, Alan. Thanks very much for your time today.
You're welcome.
I'll pass on now to Eric Parr from SolarCity, talking a little bit more about democratization, this time of your energy, not just your money. Eric, take it away. Eric, you're on mute.
I'm on mute.
No, you're not. You're good.
Okay, you've unmuted me. Okay, thanks, Andy, and thanks to the Sustainable Business Network for organising this. Really appreciate it. Can you see my slides? Are they up? Here they come. Solar Zero. So I work for a company called SolarCity. I'm Director of Public Affairs and Policy. And that's why I didn't do my slides, because Alan's a technical kind of guy. What are we about? Thank you for the first slide there. Our mission is to accelerate New Zealand's transition towards 100%. Oops, can we go back? That's the one. And we want to lower the cost of energy for Kiwi. So we really want to hit that sweet spot using technology of more renewable, better tech, and lower costs. And it's all driven by innovation. We're a mission-driven company. One of the things that gets people to work every day is wanting to do something about climate change, and that's a really, really strong focus of our business. Next slide, please. So what are we about? We're about solar panels, obviously. SolarCity, you'd expect that. But we now only do batteries with solar panels, because we see, if you go back, we see batteries as being absolutely critical to the power system of the future. We've got about 3,000 batteries in the market that are operating currently. That's one of the biggest collection of batteries owned by a single company in the world. And certainly in terms of the number of batteries, in terms of the size of the power system, we are certainly one of the world leaders in the deployment of batteries. We want to make customers save money, as I said, so we've got a price protection. We guarantee that from day one, you will not pay more. In fact, you will pay less for your electricity with our solar system than you would from the grid. And what's really cool about our system is that it's inflation proof. So what happens is you pay a fixed fee for 20 years for our solar and battery system. And that does not increase with inflation. So in fact, the amount of power you get from your solar and battery system decreases in real terms over time. So the power gets cheaper and cheaper. And we aim to meet about 60, 70, in some cases even more, a higher percentage of household electricity. We have a wonderful bit of technology. I will show it to you here. It doesn't look terribly much, but what we're doing is putting a smart little computer into every house. And really the future has arrived. The future of the power system, a few years ago, people talked about your fridge talking to this, talking to that, and hot water and EV charging, all working together. Through this little magic box here, that's all starting to happen. And the net result of that is not just cheaper power for our customers, but it's actually a more efficient power system, because what we do is we flatten out the peaks. And so you can put a lot more electrons, a lot more power through the power system, and you don't have to build new poles, new wires, new transformers and all of that sort of stuff. We're going to electrify the economy. And the question is, how can we do that in the most efficient way? And it's technology like this little thing here in people's houses that will enable us to run electric vehicles, electrify our industry, achieve our climate change goals in the most financially efficient and cheapest possible ways that we can. Next slide, please. So what do our customers get? They get cleaner and they get cheaper and they get smarter ways to power their home. In a nutshell, as I said, we guarantee savings for from year one. A large chunk of the power bill is fixed and decreases in real terms, and we own all the equipment. So if it goes wrong, it's our problem, and it's our problem for the 20 years, and then presumably customers will sign up again for another 20 years. So it's our problem forever, which means the customer gets advantages of software upgrades, a whole software platform that we're building out over time to optimize the whole system. Not only that, it's really cool too, is that customers get security during power outages. The number of positive comments we get from our customers when there's a power outage, ranging from, gosh, there was a power outage I heard on the news, I didn't even know, to, oh yeah, there was a power outage and we invited our neighbours around for a cup of tea and all the rest of it. So what our batteries do is when the power goes out at the home islands and key circuits like fridges, freezers, lights, can often put the jug on, stay on. And like I say, for some people, they go through a power cut, they don't even know that they've had one. Next slide, please. So in terms of the future, this is a quote from our founder, and his vision, and it's our mission, is to be the generation, oops, can we go back, that really tackles climate change. Let's be the generation that says, right, let's do something about climate change, let's listen to the children marching, let's really go for it in terms of climate change. And there we are in terms of, if we could go to the final slide. That's our contact details there, solarcity.co.nz, and there's my email address, and I'm probably under the 5 minutes.
You're indeed swift work, fantastic. I'll just bring myself back up. Great stuff, Eric. Thank you very much for that. We've brief run through how it all operates. What were kind of the thinking behind it going to the people? So, I mean, how has the technology changed to make it much more accessible now? Because I think back sort of 10 years, it was very much sort of a bit niche-y. It was just the real enthusiast, but we're seeing it pop up on big developments like you saw in your presentation there. What's made that change possible?
Really, it's a combination of things, but the dominant thing is just the technology's just got better and better, like all technology has. You know, you remember the first mobile phones we had that were bricks. The cost of solar panels has declined, the cost of batteries has declined, and really the processing power that you can now put in the system, which is really the magic and the secret sauce of the thing, that has increased exponentially, of course, as we know with Moore's law. So it's a combination of all of those sorts of things. And you're quite right. What's happened is that this has become affordable for people. We've innovated in terms of the technology, but we've also innovated in terms of the financial model. And what we've done is taken the barrier, the upfront cost barrier away. So there's no, you know, $10,000, $20,000 or more for a solar and battery system. There's none of that. It's just a straight monthly fee. So we take that big financial hurdle out. And what we're seeing is uptake right across the socioeconomic spectrum. It's pretty flat. Both in areas that are less well off and areas that are very well off. So we've really enabled middle New Zealand to get access to this technology through our financial innovation.
Yeah, and it's all over the country. The like weather conditions, enough sun wherever you happen to be, Dunedin to the coast.
Yep, pretty much. New Zealand is actually a surprisingly sunny place, and I say that sitting in Wellington in the wonderful sunshine of Plympton, just north of Wellington today.
And there was a lot of complexities around sort of buyback, you know, the buyback power companies, how much money they were willing to pay back when you put in the system. Do the batteries kind of get over that kind of complexity of trying to store power and then sell it back, and do you just deal with that for people? Because I remember when people were having systems before, there was a whole hoo-ha about the company won't buy my power when I'm not using it, and it got quite a little bit political, a little bit tricky there.
Yeah, no, and that's the purpose of the battery. So during the day when it's sunny, the battery stores the surplus solar power, and then when you come home at night and cook dinner and you're using a lot of power, the battery provides that power again. That drains the battery, and then at night when power's cheap and there's a lot of spare capacity on the system, we actually charge our batteries up again. So our aim is not to go off grid and take people off grid. I mean, sure, for rural communities where it's really expensive to get the power and special cases like that. But our aim is to stay connected to the grid. Our aim is to support the grid and make the grid run much more efficiently than what it is at the moment.
You throw in an electric car in there as well, and you've got quite a robust system, for your transport needs as well.
Absolutely, and I certainly have an EV, and absolutely it all, you know, it's the electrification of the economy that we're trying to drive, and electricity demand is going to increase a lot. We're going to kind of need a lot of the solar stuff, a lot of wind farms to meet the needs to replace all the fossil fuels in the economy.
And do you work commercially as well as residentially?
We have and we do, yes.
Right. So if you've got a big business out there as well, and the dynamics are a little different, aren't they? Because you're using the power much more during the day, you can use the power kind of straight in pretty much. You're not, the battery use is a bit less, but it's all a slightly different beast, in the commercial setting. Yes,
absolutely. And we're certainly now very familiar with residential scale batteries. Eventually they'll get cheap enough and good enough and so on to work more in commercial enterprises. That's probably a little bit further away than certainly where we are at the moment with residential, where batteries are all good. They work very well.
And how are you seeing it being addressed in terms of some of the concerns around the life of batteries and also the end of life, what we do with them when they're finished up?
So in terms of batteries, our sort of vision for that is that they start off life with us, and then they'll go off to data centers. I mean, batteries don't actually really die. They just sort of get weaker and weaker. And so they've got a good second life. They'll be with us for 10 or 15 years or so, and then they'll probably go to a data center for 10 or 15 years. What we'd like to do eventually is take them out of vehicles and get them out of vehicles into our system, and then off to data centers, and then ultimately to be recycled. So they have a very, very long life. And I think there's about 10,000 tonnes of batteries on our roads at the moment in our electric vehicles at about 0.5% of the fleet. So there's going to be a lot of lithium ion in the economy. And it's valuable stuff. It's going to be treated, I think, like copper. You know, I read a stat somewhere that about 80% of the copper that's ever been mined, or 80 or 90% of the copper that's ever been mined, is still being used. Because it is just so valuable, and lithium ion will be like that too. We'll just find more and more ways to store electricity, use it, shift electricity around. We've never really had that ability. We've only just produced electricity and used it as it was produced and vice versa.
And are you actively involved in some of that recycling and some of the research going into that?
We're certainly looking at it. At the moment, there's not a huge amount of batteries coming out of the system because it's so new. I mean, you know, we've got 20,000 electric vehicles in New Zealand. The only real lithium at the moment, or lithium-ion batteries that you can get out of that, is from crashed vehicles, you know, because they just haven't reached that point in their life yet that the batteries are up for replacement. So that's definitely a topic for the future.
Very cool. And you know, that sort of circular economy in lithium would be fantastic, to keep it all in the system, and all those other kind of minerals and all the resources is something we look at SBN.
Yeah, and I think once the lithium gets into the economy, it's not really going to leave, because we're just going to find all these different uses in a circular economy. Yeah.
Fantastic. And these days are all kind of solar powered systems and batteries created equal, or are there certain things people need to be looking out for, sort of certifications or kind of schemes or stickers they're looking out for the best ones?
Well,
other than your brand, obviously, but you know.
Yeah, I'd say our brand, of course.
Right.
I looked after all of those sorts of things. No, but I think really people have got to look to the future and ask the question, you know, one of the questions they need to ask, can this battery, has it got the software and the ability to communicate with the Wi-Fi, connect to the power system, so that your house actually becomes an integral part of the power system? That's going to create greater and greater value for you in the future. Also, if the power goes out, does the battery support your household? I mean, outages in some parts of the country are more frequent than others, but that's one of the key things that we want to deliver our customers, much more reliable electricity.
And there's been a lot of talk about the impact of rolling out, especially localized solar and other renewables into the grid, and the kind of maneuverings of the energy systems around that, the energy companies kind of saying, well, we sustain the grid. Is that still happening? Is there still kind of discussion about how to sort of run this infrastructure long term?
Well, I think the electricity industry is going through quite a major change at the moment. To some extent, I think if Thomas Edison turned up, he would look at bits of the electricity system and go, yeah, I kind of recognize that. You know, it hasn't changed a lot in 100 and 120, 140 years or so. I think in another 20 years, if Edison turned up, he'd say, wow, this really does look quite different. You've got solar, you've got batteries, you've got ICT controls, communication, the system's being run differently, you've got democratization of energy, and we're just on the cusp of that. It's just starting to happen. So it's a big change. It's like, you know, going from when you got videos on CDs to Netflix. That's the kind of change that the electricity industry is just starting to go through. Because it's a big infrastructure industry, it's going to take a little bit longer than some of the changes that we've seen in other areas.
Yeah, I suppose it's one of those changes that will feel like it's taken a long time and then feel like it was very sudden when it's, you know, that kind of peak will hit.
Yeah, that's right. Yep, that's what we think.
It very much seems to be not so much a thing of the future anymore, but a thing of the right now. And your company, among others, is making that really accessible for people so they can do it today.
Look, 10 years ago, in a previous life, I set up something called a Smart Grids Working Group, and we sort of plotted a vision for the power system of the future, and it had this kind of technology. And people were pretty skeptical, you know, would it ever become cheap enough, modular enough, and all of that sort of stuff. The future's arrived. Okay, the future really has arrived. We're starting to see the digitization and the democratization and the decarbonisation of our energy system.
Fantastic, exciting times, and especially with the sort of resilience challenges we've had recently, it sort of makes people think about what they've got available to them local and close to home, eh?
It does indeed, and with more working from home and so on, and who knows what patterns of behaviour we'll go back to post-COVID-19. I suspect a lot of people have enjoyed working from home. Certainly some of the reports we've had in our business and other businesses as the level of communications increase. As people work from home more, do they need more solar, more batteries, more resilience in the home?
Fantastic. Thanks very much for your time, Eric. Thanks very much for coming along, and thanks to Alan Doak from Sharesies. I hope you've enjoyed this morning's little run through of a couple of the members of the Sustainable Business Network. Obviously, we've got more than 600 organisations all over the country doing all sorts of exciting things. So dip onto our website, sustainable.org.nz, to find out more. And you can check out our directory. You can search under solar. You can search under financial systems to see the other players in that space and how they're connected together. And look out for more shout outs in the coming weeks, and our events are all on our website. So do sign up and stay with us as you go about your day. Thanks very much for your time, and we'll see you again.